Every morning before you've even poured your first cup of coffee, something remarkable may already be happening outside your window. A tiny bird lands on a nearby branch and waits. It isn't there by accident, it isn't simply passing through. Somehow it seems to know you're coming. To most people, filling a bird feeder feels like a simple act of kindness. You hang up some seed, a few birds arrive, and everyone benefits, but scientists have discovered that what begins as a handful of seeds can quietly change the lives of the birds visiting your yard. Over time, they begin making decisions around your routine. They learn your habits, recognize your presence, and sometimes even reorganize their entire daily lives around a resource that wasn't there before. The relationship becomes far more complicated than most people ever imagine, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why feeding birds is about much more than food. Welcome to Feathered Mysteries. If you enjoy uncovering the hidden science and remarkable secrets of the birds that share our gardens, forests and neighborhoods, you've found the right place. If you haven't already, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, because every week we explore fascinating mysteries that will change the way you look at the natural world. Today, we're uncovering what really happens when you feed backyard birds every single day. Some discoveries are heartwarming, others may surprise you, and one near the end could completely change the way you think about your own bird feeder. It all begins with something birds have spent millions of years perfecting: finding reliable food. In the wild, almost nothing stays the same for long. Wildflowers bloom and fade. Insects emerge for only a few weeks before disappearing. Trees produce seeds one season and almost none the next. Even berry bushes that seem full today may be stripped bare tomorrow by migrating flocks. Every day is a search, and every successful meal depends on remembering where food was found before it disappears. That's why many backyard birds possess extraordinary memories. Species such as chickadees, nuthatches, and jays can remember hundreds, even thousands, of locations where food has been hidden or discovered. Their survival depends on it, and when feeder appears, it immediately becomes something nature rarely offers: certainty. Imagine you're a chickadee weighing barely half an ounce. During winter, you lose precious body heat every minute. A freezing night can burn through much of the energy stored in your tiny body, and by sunrise, the search for food becomes urgent. Every unnecessary flight wastes calories. Every minute spent searching empty branches increases the risk of starvation or becoming prey for a hawk. Now imagine discovering a place where fresh, high-energy seeds appear almost every morning without fail. From the bird's perspective, that's an extraordinary opportunity. It isn't simply convenient, it's a resource worth remembering. Scientists studying winter songbirds have repeatedly found that reliable, supplemental feeding improves the body condition of many species during harsh weather. Birds with access to consistent food often maintain healthier fat reserves, giving them a better chance of surviving freezing nights, heavy snow, and periods when natural food becomes difficult to find. Those extra reserves may only weigh a fraction of a gram, but for a tiny bird, that fraction can mean surviving until sunrise. But the feeder isn't the only thing changing. The bird is changing too. At first, your yard is simply another stop along its daily route. A quick visit, a sunflower seed, then off to search the nearby trees, but birds are constantly calculating where their time is best spent. Every successful visit teaches the brain an important lesson. This place is reliable. The more often the reward appears, the stronger that memory becomes. Before long, your garden is no longer just one location among many. It becomes one of the most dependable places in the bird's world. Researchers studying bird movement have discovered that reliable food sources often reduce the distance birds travel each day. Instead of wandering widely across fields and forests searching for scattered meals, they concentrate more of their activity around dependable feeding areas. This saves energy, reduces unnecessary risk, and allows more time for resting, preening, watching for predators, or defending territory. Without realizing it, your backyard slowly becomes part of their daily survival strategy. Think about that for a moment. The robin hopping across your lawn, the cardinal perched on your fence, the blue tit darting through the shrubs. They may no longer be visiting by chance. They could be following a route they've repeated dozens or even hundreds of times. To you, it's a pleasant morning encounter. To them, it's another stop on a carefully planned journey shaped by memory and experience. And then something even more remarkable begins to happen. The birds stop learning about your feeder and start learning about you. At first, that may sound impossible. After all, their brains are tiny compared to ours, but size isn't the same as capability. Birds evolved under constant pressure to recognize danger, remember opportunities, and respond to subtle changes in their environment. A bird that fails to notice patterns doesn't survive very long. So when the same person steps into the garden every morning, carrying the same container, moving in the same calm way, and leaving behind a fresh supply of food, those details don't go unnoticed. They become part of a pattern the bird's brain begins storing almost immediately. Researchers studying avian cognition have shown that many songbirds excel at associative learning. In simple terms, they connect one event with another. A certain sound predicts food. A particular location predicts safety. Even human routines can become reliable signals. Within just a few days of consistent feeding, many backyard birds begin arriving shortly before their usual feeding time. It isn't because they can tell time the way humans do. Instead, they're reading environmental clues with astonishing accuracy. The angle of the morning sun, changing light levels, familiar sounds around the neighborhood, even your own daily movements all become pieces of a puzzle they've learned to solve. Have you ever opened your back door and found birds already waiting? Many people assume it's coincidence, but in reality those birds have likely been watching for several minutes. They've learned that when the door opens around the same time each morning, food usually follows. Their patience isn't random. It's a prediction based on repeated success. And once a bird realizes that your routine is dependable, something else begins to change. It becomes less cautious. Trust is one of the rarest and most valuable things in the natural world. Every bird lives with constant danger. Cooper's hawks, sharp-shinned hawks, domestic cats, snakes, crows, raiding nests, sudden storms, almost every day presents another challenge. Remaining suspicious keeps birds alive. That's why a sudden movement can empty a feeder in a heartbeat. Yet if you've fed birds for months or years, you may have noticed something remarkable. The birds no longer fly away the moment you appear. Some continue feeding while you stand only a few yards away. Others perch quietly in nearby branches, watching as you refill the feeder instead of fleeing. That isn't tameness, it's a carefully calculated decision. Every successful encounter without danger strengthens their confidence that you're not a threat. Scientists refer to this as habituation, a natural process where animals gradually stop reacting to repeated experiences that prove harmless. It's an efficient survival strategy. If birds fled every time leaves rustled or every time a familiar person walked into the garden, they'd waste enormous amounts of energy. Instead, they constantly update their assessment of risk. That doesn't mean they stop paying attention. Quite the opposite. Even while calmly eating, birds remain incredibly alert. Their eyes constantly scan the sky, nearby branches, and the ground beneath them. They monitor your movements, your posture, and even the speed at which you walk. A slow, familiar approach is very different from a sudden dash across the lawn. Every movement provides information, and birds are remarkably skilled at interpreting it. Some species take this even further. Blue jays, crows, ravens, and magpies belong to one of the most intelligent groups of birds on Earth. Numerous studies have demonstrated that corvids can recognize individual human faces, remember previous encounters for years, and even warn other birds about people they perceive as dangerous. While smaller songbirds rely more heavily on movement, routine, and general appearance than facial recognition, the result is surprisingly similar. They begin building a mental profile of the humans sharing their environment. Without ever realizing it, you've become part of their daily calculations. But the mystery doesn't stop with one bird, because birds rarely keep valuable information to themselves. Imagine a young finch exploring unfamiliar territory after leaving its parents. Every tree, every hedge, Every garden could hold food or danger. Exploring blindly wastes energy and increases the chance of becoming prey. So instead of relying only on personal experience, birds often watch one another. And if several birds are calmly feeding in one location without alarm calls or frantic escapes, that's an incredibly powerful signal. It suggests the area is safe. Scientists call this social learning, and it's one of the most important survival tools many bird species possess. Rather than discovering everything through trial and error, birds constantly gather information simply by observing others. A new bird notices chickadees feeding peacefully at your feeder. The next day, it lands nearby. Soon afterward, another bird follows. Week by week, your feeder becomes more than a food source. It develops a reputation. This helps explain something many backyard bird lovers experience. The first few days after installing a feeder can feel disappointingly quiet. A single sparrow arrives, then perhaps one finch, maybe a curious tit or nuthatch. But after several weeks or even months, the activity suddenly seems to explode. Birds appear from every direction. Species you've never seen before begin showing up. It almost feels as though someone spread the news. In a way, they did. Not with words, of course, but through observation. Every calm visit tells another bird, this place is worth investigating. Your yard slowly becomes woven into the local bird community. By now you might think the story couldn't become any more remarkable. But it can. Because once birds begin depending on a place they trust, something happens when that trust is suddenly broken. This is where many backyard bird lovers are surprised. Feeding birds every day creates an opportunity, but over time, it can also become an expectation. That doesn't mean birds forget how to survive without people. Healthy wild birds continue searching for insects, berries, buds, and natural seeds every day. A feeder is only one part of their diet, but when that feeder has been reliable for weeks or months, it becomes one of the first places they check each morning. From an energy standpoint, it makes perfect sense. Why spend valuable time searching an entire woodland when yesterday's dependable food source may already be waiting? Think about how many decisions a small bird makes every day. Every flight costs energy. Every extra minute spent foraging increases exposure to predators. Every unnecessary movement matters. Natural selection has favored birds that make efficient decisions, and returning to a dependable food source is one of the smartest decisions they can make. That's why many species establish regular feeding circuits, moving between the same trees, hedgerows, gardens, and water sources in nearly the same sequence every day. Your feeder may now be one stop on that route, perhaps even the most important one. Scientists using lightweight tracking devices have discovered that many backyard birds follow surprisingly predictable daily patterns. Their movements aren't random. They repeatedly visit locations that have proven successful before, adjusting only when conditions change. Your garden has quietly become one of those successful locations. But what happens if that location suddenly changes? Imagine a freezing winter morning after several days of heavy snow. A chickadee arrives at your feeder expecting the sunflower seeds it has found there every morning for the past 2 months. Instead, the feeder is empty. It checks again a few minutes later. Nothing. It circles through nearby trees before returning once more. Still empty. Does the bird simply give up? Not immediately. Research suggests birds often revisit productive feeding sites several times before abandoning them. After all, returning costs less energy than searching an unfamiliar landscape. And if a resource has been dependable for weeks, it's reasonable, from the bird's perspective, to assume it may become available again shortly. Eventually, healthy birds expand their search and rely more heavily on natural food sources or neighbouring feeders. But during periods of severe winter weather when daylight is short and food is difficult to find, even a few wasted trips can matter. This is one reason organisations such as the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds encourage consistency during harsh winters if you choose to feed birds. The goal isn't to make birds dependent on people. It's to avoid creating sudden changes during the season when every calorie counts. Unfortunately, nature has prepared birds with remarkable resilience. They don't forget how to forage, they don't become helpless overnight. Even birds that visit feeders daily continue searching tree bark for insects, harvesting seeds from grasses and exploring natural food sources throughout the day. Your feeder is an advantage, not their entire world. Yet when food is scarce, that advantage can make the difference between ending the day with enough stored energy or not. And while birds are adapting to your routine, they're also paying attention to something else: your behavior. Have you ever noticed that birds react differently to different people? One family member can walk into the garden and every bird immediately disappears. Another person steps outside and the birds barely interrupt their meal. At first glance, it feels almost magical, but there's solid science behind it. Birds are extraordinary observers. Their vision is among the best in the animal kingdom. Many species process visual information much faster than humans, allowing them to detect subtle movements that our own eyes barely notice. This ability evolved because hesitation can be fatal. Spotting a diving hawk a fraction of a second earlier may be the difference between life and death. That same visual system is quietly studying you. Your posture, the way you walk, the speed of your movements, the direction of your gaze, even the route you usually take across the garden. Every encounter adds another piece to the puzzle. If your movements remain calm and predictable, birds gradually classify you as a low-risk part of their environment. Not because they've forgotten you're human, but because experience has taught them that your presence rarely ends in danger. Researchers studying urban wildlife often describe this as a balance between caution and efficiency. Every unnecessary escape wastes precious energy. Birds that correctly identify harmless situations conserve energy for more important challenges like raising young, escaping real predators, or surviving winter. In other words, trusting you isn't kindness, it's biology. And perhaps the most fascinating part is that this trust can spread across generations. Young birds leaving the nest spend months watching experienced adults. They learn where food can be found, which alarm calls deserve immediate attention, and which locations are consistently safe. While much of their behavior is instinctive, observation plays an enormous role in shaping how they navigate the world. That means the young cardinal visiting your feeder this autumn may be learning from adults that have successfully used your garden for years. They're inheriting knowledge, without a single word ever being spoken, and that raises one final mystery. If birds can remember places, learn from one another, recognize familiar humans, and pass information through generations, what exactly do they think when they see you step into the garden each morning